Before we begin, make sure you like this video and subscribe, or the thing that watched me might decide to watch you next. I grew up in a town so small, the gas station doubled as the grocery store and the post office. Everyone knew everyone, or at least they thought they did. Our house sat on the edge of Thistlewood Forest, where the trees got so thick and close together, you couldn't see sunlight past noon. My mom used to say the forest held secrets better than people ever could. I was 9 the first time I saw it. It was a Sunday. I remember because I was grounded for stealing gum from Mrs. Calder's store the day before. Mom had told me to stay inside, so I pressed my forehead to the window, staring at the rain as it came down in sheets. Those thick, sideways kinds of storms that made everything feel like the world was trying to wash itself clean. That's when I saw movement near the tree line. At first, I thought it was a trick of the rain. A branch maybe, but then it stepped forward. A man, no, something shaped like a man, was just standing there in the storm. Tall, rail-thin, completely still. His clothes were dark and soaked, clinging to him like wet paper. I squinted, trying to see his face, but there wasn't one. No eyes, no mouth. Just this blurred, swirling patch where features should have been, like smoke trapped under skin. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My breath caught. I backed away from the window, heart pounding so loud I thought it would wake the whole house. When I dared to look again, he was gone. No footprints. No sign he'd ever been there. The next morning, the air felt different. Heavier. The kind of pressure that made your teeth ache and your skin itch. My dad said it was just the humidity. But even our dog, Rascal, refused to go near the woods. Over the next few weeks, I started seeing that same faceless figure in my dreams. Standing at the edge of the forest. Just watching. Always watching. And every time, I'd wake up gasping, my sheets soaked in sweat, the whisper of wind clawing at my window. Then one night, I made the mistake of following that whisper. It was after midnight. I crept out of bed, down the hallway, barefoot and shivering. Something was calling me, not with words, but with this pull, like a rope around my ribs, gently tugging me forward. I opened the back door and stepped into the wet grass. The forest was darker than I remembered. The trees felt closer, like they were listening. I walked until I saw it. The shed. No one ever mentioned it. Not my parents. Not the neighbors. It was just there, tucked between two massive pines. Crooked, sagging, and wrong. Not rotten or broken. Just wrong, like it didn't belong to this world. The moment I saw it, I knew he was inside. Sound cue. Distant thunder, faint whispering. I reached for the latch, but a hand grabbed my shoulder. It was my father. His face pale, eyes wide with a fear I'd never seen before. He didn't yell. He didn't ask questions. He just scooped me up and ran. We never spoke about it again. But from that night on, the woods were off limits. Dad nailed the back door shut. Mom started sleeping with a rosary. And I started counting storms. Because every time the thunder came, he did too. 15 years. That's how long I stayed away. When my father died, I came back. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. The house was in my name now. The same creaky porch. The same fogged up windows. Only this time, there was no one waiting inside. Just silence. And dust. And that same forest. Still watching. I'd barely been home for a day when the first storm hit. Just like before. Sudden. Brutal. I stood at the window, staring out. My eyes drifted, almost unconsciously, toward the tree line. And there he was. Same height. Same stance. Same blurred, faceless void. It hadn't aged. Hadn't changed. And somehow, it knew I was back. I closed every curtain, locked every door, even though I knew it wouldn't matter. That night, I dreamed of the shed again. Only this time, I wasn't a kid. And this time, the door was open. Inside, it wasn't filled with tools or wood or forgotten junk. It was filled with whispers. Hundreds of them. Circling me. Whispering my name. Telling me things I didn't want to remember. Things I didn't know I had forgotten. I woke up on the floor, nails in my hands. Real nails. Long. Iron rusted. I've been clutching them so hard they pierced my skin. That's when I realized something. It wasn't just a nightmare. Whatever this thing was, it never left. And now that I was back, it was ready to finish what it started. It had been 3 days since I'd returned to my childhood home, and the air around me was getting heavier, thicker, like it knew something was coming. Every creak in the walls, every gust through the trees, sounded like it carried meaning, like it was whispering warnings in a language I couldn't understand. That morning, I walked into the backyard and looked toward the woods. The sky was overcast, but not with rain, something else. A gray that didn't belong. Like the clouds were made of ash and old breath. I stared at the tree line, and my stomach turned. The shed was just visible between the skeletal trunks. Still there, still untouched since I was a kid. But I knew better. It had been watching me. Every night in my dreams, it was closer. I started hearing the whispers again, but they weren't in my head this time. They were outside my window. At 2:17 a.m., I heard them, murmuring, shifting, echoing. Then silence. Then a low humming, deep and mechanical, as if the earth itself were groaning beneath the weight of something too ancient to exist. I crept to the window, opened the blinds just a sliver. The trees weren't moving, not even in the wind, but I saw him, just like when I was a boy. Tall, faceless, still. He stood just behind the tree line. I could feel his absence of features. His head tilted, not fast, not sudden, just deliberate, like a marionette pulled by invisible threads. And I swear to God, I blinked and he was gone. But the shed door was open, wide open. I slammed the blinds shut and backed away from the window. My breathing was shallow. I didn't want to go outside, but I knew he wouldn't wait there. Not this time. That night, I dreamed of the storm again. But now I wasn't just a child. I was both child and adult, trapped in a loop of memory. I stood in the backyard, watching lightning strike the woods again and again, but instead of thunder, there were screams. They rose with every flash, high, sharp, human. I turned around, and the shed was behind me. Not the real shed, the original one. The one from my dream. The one with no doors and no roof, just 4 rotted walls and a pulsing darkness inside it. He stood inside, the faceless man, watching, but I could feel his eyes. So many eyes. I woke up gasping. The room felt humid, like the air had been breathed 100 times already. My walls were damp. The window was fogged from the inside. My phone dead, not powered off, dead. I had to go back to the shed. I don't know what part of me thought it was a good idea. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was him pulling me, drawing me in like a magnet tugging at rusted nails. I walked into the woods, my flashlight flickering, my boots crunching through a floor of old, wet leaves. The air smelled like burnt copper. The closer I got, the more the woods seemed to change. The trees bent slightly inward. Their bark was blackened, their branches sharp and angular like bone. I kept walking, ignoring every primal instinct screaming for me to run. And then I reached it, the shed. Its door was still open. I stepped inside. The air changed immediately. It was thick, wet. Every breath burned like I was inhaling steam and ice at the same time. The inside was bigger than it should have been. No walls, no floor, just dark, pitch black, endless and pulsing like a living thing. Like the dark was breathing and I was inside its lungs. Then I heard it, not with my ears, in my mind. You came back. The voice was cold and hollow, but somehow also sounded like mine. Twisted, older, more used. And then I saw it. Him. The faceless man, rising from the darkness like a figure being drawn into existence with invisible ink. His body towered, stretched like someone had forgotten the rules of anatomy and just kept building upward. He had no eyes, but he looked at me. You left me here. The voice echoed, now in my skull, now in the walls, now behind me. I turned. There was no door, just void. I screamed. Nothing came out. The shadows wrapped around me like fingers. I felt them crawl up my legs, my spine, my throat. You brought the storm. You gave me shape. Then I remembered. The night I first saw him, the storm wasn't random. I had been outside, playing with something I wasn't supposed to touch, my dad's old weather radio. I'd been toying with the frequency dial when the lightning started. I'd invited him in. He didn't come from a storm. He was the storm. I dropped to my knees, crying, shaking, clawing at the wooden floor that wasn't really there. But something gave way. A trapdoor I hadn't noticed before. It opened on its own. Below it, a spiral staircase of rotting wood and red stone, leading down into a yawning abyss. "Come home," he whispered. "Come home to me." I did the only thing I could do. I ran. I don't remember how I got out of the shed. I just remember the screaming. My own. The wind. The trees. Him. The forest behind me bent and twisted like it was trying to hold me in, like the roots themselves were reaching for my ankles. But I burst through, back into the backyard, back into the now. The shed is gone, burned to the ground that same night, though I never lit a match. And yet, every time it rains, every time thunder rolls in the distance, I feel him watching. He waits for the next child to call him. He waits for the next storm. He waits for the one who will finally open the door all the way. And God help us all when someone does. I thought it was over. After that night, after the shed burned and the forest stopped whispering, I believed I had escaped. But the truth is, I had only survived. There's a difference. Survival is not peace. It's not freedom. It's just a slow bleeding, a quiet war inside your mind where no one hears the screams but you. I left that town, sold a house, didn't even go back for the deed. I moved 3 states away and swore I'd never speak of it again. But trauma, it festers in silence. The dreams returned first. Not every night, just on the rainy ones. I'd be back in the woods, walking toward a place I couldn't see, but felt. My body moving without my control. The ground always wet. The smell always the same. Burnt ozone and iron. I kept seeing that staircase. Downward. Endless. Carved from bone. And he was always there, just ahead, his tall, featureless body swaying like a shadow on a noose. You left it open. You let me in. You brought me back. I started waking up with dirt on my feet. One night, I found leaves in my bed. Another night, mud on the windowsill from the inside. I hadn't just dreamed the door. I had left it open. Then came the people. Strangers. They started finding me, writing me, calling me. A girl from Michigan who claimed to have seen him standing in the middle of the road during a thunderstorm. A man from Oregon who said he went camping and woke up standing outside a shed he swore didn't exist before. One by one, they found me. They all described the same thing. The Faceless man. And they all said the same sentence. He's watching again. I realized something horrifying. He wasn't tied to the shed. He wasn't bound to the woods. He was bound to me. Wherever I went, I carried that storm with me. And he followed. So I tried to end it. I went back one last time. To the place where it began. There was nothing there. No shed. Just scorched ground and trees twisted in ways they shouldn't be. Like they'd been looking up at something that never came. I brought gasoline, matches, salt. I walked to the center of the clearing and stood where the trapdoor once opened. "You think fire can end me?" the wind said. "You're not a visitor anymore. You're the door." That was when I felt it. The pressure behind my eyes. The weight of my bones. He wasn't outside anymore. He was inside. Not possessing me, becoming me. Every time I remember him, every time I say his name, I turn the handle. Every person I tell, every story that spreads, opens the door a little wider. And once it's wide enough, he won't need the storm. He won't need the woods. He'll walk in plain sight, through us as us. So now I stay silent. I don't sleep on rainy nights. I never speak his name. And when people ask me why I avoid the thunder, why I flinch at flickering lights, why I keep salt at every window and mirrors covered, I just smile and lie. Because if I told them the truth, they'd start dreaming too. And the next time it storms, they'd hear him whisper. When it watches, you belong to it. And it never stops watching. I tried everything. Therapists, hypnotherapy, medication. I even checked myself into a psychiatric facility once. I told them I was afraid of the rain, of reflections, of open fields and empty woods. I never told them the real reason, because I knew the truth wouldn't help me. It would infect them, and that's exactly what it does, this thing. It spreads like rot through belief. The more we remember it, the more we describe it, the more real it becomes. It's not a ghost. It's not a demon. It's a concept with teeth. I moved again, off the grid this time. No phone, no meters, no internet. Just books and a generator and a wood stove. But isolation doesn't help when the real haunting is inside your own mind. One night, I was reading by candlelight when the flame flickered out. The wind started howling. The pressure dropped in the cabin like a vacuum had just opened overhead. And then a knock on the window. Just one. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. But then came another knock from the other side of the cabin. Then a third knock from inside the room. I turned and saw it. Not a man. Not a monster. But a reflection. It hovered in the cracked glass of a broken picture frame. My own body, standing completely still, but the face was gone. Smooth skin like wax melted over bone. No eyes. No mouth. Yet I could feel it smiling. Do you know what the storm really is? It's not rain. It's memory. The lights surged. Every bulb exploded. The wind screamed louder than sound itself. I dropped to my knees, begging for silence, for peace, for forgetting. And then I woke up. Hours later. The cabin was cold. The door wide open. Outside, the sky was clear. Birds chirped like nothing had happened. But the mirror was still cracked. And my reflection, it still didn't smile back. That was the moment I understood. You don't escape it. You become it. Piece by piece, memory by memory, it replaces you. Not all at once, but over years. And then, one day, when someone looks into your eyes and asks, "Are you okay?" Your mouth says yes, but the thing behind your eyes starts watching them instead. It waits. It learns. It hides in your habits, your voice, your smile. And when the moment is right, it steps through. So I ask you, if you're still listening, if you made it this far, do you remember the shed? Do you remember the storm? Do you remember the man with no face? Because if you do, then it's too late. He doesn't need to knock anymore. He's already inside. I haven't spoken aloud in weeks, maybe months. My voice feels foreign, fragile, like if I speak too much, something else might answer. I don't sleep anymore. Not really. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the forest, back in the clearing, back in front of that shed door. But the weirdest part, I'm not a kid in the dream anymore. I'm me, right now, as I am. But I'm not alone. Sometimes I see him again, the boy I was. He doesn't speak. He just stares at me with hollow eyes, as if blaming me. And every night, the dreams push a little deeper. The shed gets a little closer, the storm a little louder, and the thing inside, it watches me watching myself. One night, I woke up to find my old drawings scattered on the floor. You remember those? The ones I drew when I was a kid? Only now they weren't on paper anymore. They were etched into the wood of my cabin floor, scorched in charcoal, burned into the walls. And every sketch, the faceless man, the twisted trees, the shed, was watching me. That's when I knew. I was never supposed to survive that day. Something went wrong. He let me go. Maybe I amused him. Maybe I passed some test. Or maybe he needed a vessel. I tried to run again. I took the last bit of fuel and drove all night to the mountains, hoping elevation or snow or silence would stop the memories. But the road ended without warning. A dead end that didn't exist on any map. I stepped out of the car, and there was again, the shed, standing alone, on the edge of a cliff. No trees, no forest, just fog and that rotted wooden frame, waiting for me. I don't know how I got to the door. I don't remember walking, but I felt the air bend as I reached for the handle. The wind turned silent. The clouds above began to swirl in a perfect circle. And then, right before I opened it, I heard his voice, but not through sound, through memory. You are the storm now. You are the eye that opens. You are what comes after forgetting. I opened the door, and all I saw was a mirror, old, tall, ornate, covered in dust and dark stains. But it reflected everything perfectly, except me. I cast no reflection. I wasn't there. Only he was. He looked like me, my age, my posture, but his face, still blank, still smiling. And then I understood. I hadn't escaped. I hadn't survived. I'd become the story, the kind whispered in sleep, the kind drawn in blood on cell walls, the kind that waits inside people who believe in monsters. So now I live here, where stories go to rot, where memory loops forever. And I ask one final thing of you. Forget me. Forget this story. Burn it. Delete it. Unsee every word. Because if you remember it, if you speak it aloud. Then he finds you, and once he watches you, he never stops. Static creeps in. A faint storm builds. A child's voice whispers, "Do you want to see inside?"